What we're looking at today is the CF-188A, a premium jet fighter in Rank 8 of the UK Air Tree at battle rating 12.7 for air and 12.3 for ground. This is a premium jet that was introduced to the web store with the Tusk Force update in September of 2025, and if you go to pick it up, make sure to use my affiliate link in the description to get a small discount. This plane has a fully featured ballistics computer for all of its weapons, including the EEGS for its gun, along with a fully modern radar warning receiver that tracks into the J-band. Its radar is the AN/APG-65. This is an I-band set with pretty good range, multiple dish angles and range presets on the scope, and basically all of the modern top-tier features, including track while scan and ground MTI modes. It also supports data link and non-cooperative threat recognition, notably though, no helmet-mounted sight. For loadouts, this jet gets a huge list of presets, or you can build your own. It can take drop tanks, unguided and guided air-to-ground ordnance, air-to-air missiles, and a targeting pod. Your dogfight missile is the AIM-9L. This is an all-aspect infrared missile with good tracking, 30 Gs of pull, but no infrared countermeasures. If you're new to top tier, this is your short-range fire-and-forget weapon. Your radar missile is the AIM-7P. This version of the Sparrow has continuous wave semi-active radar guidance, along with inertial tracking and data link support. Its performance is very similar to other versions of the Sparrow, but it can track through brief losses and radar locks thanks to the IOG and data link. If you're new to top tier, this is generally best used between about 3 and 10 kilometers, but you can occasionally get longer range hits with it. For air-to-ground weapons, there are too many to go through all of them, but there are a couple of standouts that I like. The AGM-65 is an infrared-guided version of the Maverick anti-tank missile with pretty good tracking and a SAP-HE warhead. However, it's a really slow missile, but it can reliably hit targets from fairly long range, plus it's fire and forget. But it won't always one-shot a main battle tank depending on where it hits. The GBU-24 is an enormous laser-guided bomb. It doesn't have IOG, so you have to maintain the lays all the way until impact, but its enormous warhead can pop main battle tanks even on a near miss. In terms of its flight performance, the CF-188 is nearly identical to the FA-18A that it's based on. The A-model Hornets have, frankly, kinda average engine power for Rank 8, but they make up for it with really insane AOA turn performance. The acceleration is fairly middle of the pack for top-tier jets, and its top speed is notably lower than most of the planes it faces. You'll rarely get this thing above around Mach 1.15, and even then only up at higher altitudes. The real claim to fame for the Hornet is its excellent high AOA performance. In short, this thing can swing its nose around very fast even without using the Cobra button. If you're new to top tier, the turn performance of this jet is going to be a major learning curve because it comes with a huge caveat. The energy retention in high angle of attack turns is absolutely awful because you're pulling around so quick that the bottom of the plane acts as an air brake against the oncoming air, and you're going to lose a lot of airspeed very quickly. Yes, you can swing the nose around like a champion, but if you end up in a prolonged fight and you're twisting around for more than a couple of maneuvers, you might find yourself out of energy in a jet with lower thrust to weight than most of its opponents. When you take this jet out into air battles, it's going to provide you with some fairly good flexibility. However, if you're new to top tier jets, you're probably going to be completely overwhelmed. Don't worry, that's normal, and it'll become a bit easier with practice. The first big thing to say is that this jet doesn't get any active radar missiles. In a full up tier, this puts you at a major disadvantage, and it can be difficult to engage more than one target at a time, which is kind of a fundamental aspect of chaotic top tier air battles right now. Try playing around a bit with the ratio of AIM-7s to AIM-9s that you take in your loadout, and see what fits your playstyle the best. Consider using one or two of your AIM-7s more as throwaway shots, just to keep up the aggressive tempo and force your opponent into defensive maneuvering while you close the distance for more conventional dogfighting. Really, that's where the Hornet is best, somewhat short-range dogfights. so do what you can to get close. You don't get a helmet-mounted sight, another disadvantage, but the jet's radar has a very tall ACM frame that's good for dogfighting, and you can see me use it in some of the footage. This can help get a radar lock for missile slaving or EEGS gun solutions in dogfights. Try to get into the practice of switching your ACM frame quickly if you can. In terms of ground attack, the jet can put out some massive pain. Now, people will be annoyed with you if you take a top-tier fighter like this out into air battles and do ground pounding, but it can if you really want to. But really, the best use case for this jet for ground attack is as close air support. Out over ground battles, its laser-guided bombs and Mavericks are all very credible weapons at the top tier, and it's still got the performance to defend itself in air combat. If you're getting this as a filler jet for a high-tier UK tank lineup, you probably won't be let down, but just remember that the SPAA is pretty brutal these days, and flying out over a top-tier ground battle is a rough meta towards the end of 2025. Now, out in the real world, the CF-188 is the Canadian designation for the F/A-18A Hornet. Back in the 1970s, Canada was still using the older CF-101 and CF-104 as their primary interceptors, and they knew that very quickly they were becoming obsolete in that role. As part of a larger national defense review, the need for a new multi-role fighter was identified as a high priority, and several different options were looked at. After evaluating the F-16, two versions of the F-18, the F-14, the F-15, the Mirage F1, and the Tornado, they eventually picked the F/A-18A as the winner in 1980. By 1982, newly built Hornets were entering service with the Canadian Forces. Now, one bit of minutia. In Canadian service, the jet is officially designated the CF-188A. However, informally and in more casual settings, it's usually just referred to as the CF-18 or just the Hornet. But regardless of what you want to call it, the new jets became Canada's primary combat aircraft by the late 1980s. They flew combat sorties in the first Gulf War and were actually the first Canadian aircraft to fire weapons in anger since the Korean War all the way back in the 1950s. There were multiple upgrade programs for the Canadian Hornets over the years, but I'm not going to get into those here, as frankly, we're probably going to get them in the game as their own jets at some point. Canada is currently trying to get a replacement sourced to phase out their old Hornets, but that's actually becoming a fairly charged political issue right now, with the American-Canadian relationship being fairly strained at the moment, and the whole replacement program being plagued by scandals, so I guess we'll see what happens. Visually, the Hornet is a beautiful aircraft, and the CF-188A is no exception. You get some really good-looking paint jobs for this one, and the 3D model is well detailed. Overall, this is a great jet to have up on the screen. Landing is fairly typical for high-tier jets, but it's a naval plane, and the gear is pretty solid, so it survives rough landings easier than a lot of the others. You can put the gear out at about 700 kilometers an hour, and the flaps out at a bit over 450. Relatively beginner-friendly landing profile for a high-tier jet. Now, the cockpit on this thing is excellent. The visibility is good in every direction, huge MFDs, a useful HUD, and really good high-res details. The radar warning receiver is a little lower than I prefer, but other than that one thing, I had a blast with this plane in VR. To close out on the CF-188A. This thing has outstanding dogfight agility. It's got a really good radar set. It has competitive weapons for both air-to-ground and air-to-air for its BR. It can do carrier stuff, and it gets premium bonuses. However, the supply of countermeasures can be a little low for longer matches. Its energy retention is awful in chaotic dogfights. It's not quite as fast as most of the other jets in Rank 8, it doesn't get a helmet-mounted sight, and it's very expensive. The final verdict on the CF-188A is that this is a very capable version of the Hornet, and if you're looking for a high-tier multi-role jet for the UK, this is a really good pick. It can do just about any job well enough to be competitive. As always, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, check out this other one.